Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Health Talks podcast, a platform where we highlight the unique journeys of leaders in science and healthcare. Now, today, we have a very special guest joining us on the podcast. She is a fourth-year medical student in the French stream at the University of Ottawa, a fitness coach, content creator, co-founder of the Rise and Run crew, and most importantly, an inspiration to so many young girls out there. Without further ado, allow me to introduce the person who needs no introduction, Catalina Fernandez. Catalina, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing great today. How are you doing, Gio?
Well, it's second weekend, so things are starting to pick up. But thank you so much for joining us today. It's an honor to have you on. You know, when I was first thinking about this podcast and getting it off the ground, I attended the CYM conference where you were a guest speaker at. And I was so moved by your story. It was very relatable. It was very inspirational. And I was thinking in my head after, I was like, man, it would be so cool if I could have this girl on after. So it's awesome to have you, and I can't wait to discuss.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me here. I love doing these types of things. I love to kind of talk about my story, and I think kind of what you mentioned that when I was an undergrad, I always tried to seek out people that maybe kind of had a similar story. And I really valued when people were transparent and maybe, sometimes spoke about the lows rather than only the highs when it comes to medicine. So, yeah, I'm super grateful to be here, super excited to chat again and share my story. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, your story is truly remarkable, from your early beginnings, from immigrating here from Chile to building Ottawa's one of Ottawa's fastest growing running clubs. For listeners who may not know you, could you walk us through your journey and how these experiences have shaped you into the person you are today?
For sure. So I'll start, I guess, somewhat from the beginning. So, like you mentioned, I was born in Chile, and I moved to Canada when I was 5 years old. And that was because my parents just wanted to move here and kind of give my brothers and I a better future academically and just kind of in general. We ended up in Ottawa through just a friend of a friend of a friend that my parents knew. And they were like, yeah, Ottawa's great. So that's why I'm here. Nothing magical or anything like that. But then I wasn't born and raised in Ottawa, but I was raised in Ottawa. So I did all my elementary school here. And then I did my undergrad here as well. I did 2 years in biomedical sciences, and then I did 2 years in TMM, the Translational and Molecular Medicine program. And then I applied to med school during TMM. I didn't get any interviews, and then I applied the year after that, and then I got an interview and got accepted to Ottawa. And with a couple of things in the mix, which included moving to Italy for 6 months before starting med school and not getting the best of grades when I started undergrad and having really low moments where I felt really defeated and thought, maybe medicine isn't the path for me. But ultimately, I'm here now. I'm in my fourth year, which sounds strange to say out loud because 3 weeks ago I was in my third year. So it's still a kind of foreign concept for me to say. But yeah, that's, I guess, a rounded version of my story. I know that you mentioned kind of fitness coaching, so that was in there as well, but I know we're going to chat about all those things. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of, I guess, what led me to where I am today, excluding a lot of details, but the well-rounded story.
Yeah, no, and you've been really open about your challenges in your first year of undergrad academically. Something I think a lot of students need to hear because it's something they can relate to. Right? And looking back, what did that adversity teach you, and how did it change the way you approach school and maybe as well like other aspects of your life as well?
Yeah, so I think adversity, it's kind of this buzzword that in medicine, and now as I prepare for my residency interviews, actually, a lot of the questions and a lot of the things that us as medical students and future residents we need to think about is adversity. So a lot of questions in my personal letters and stuff, it's like, tell me about a time that you dealt with adversity. How did it grow you? How did it shape you? And I think it's this thing that can be really cliche and everyone's like, oh, adversity. But I do think there is a lot of value in it if you examine it retrospectively. So in the moment when I was in first year and I got a C plus in biology and then I got a D plus in calculus and
Wow.
I had a really low GPA and everyone around me, it felt like everyone was so much smarter than me and everyone, I would just hear them talking and be like, oh, I'm so frustrated. Like I got a 92 on the exam and not a 95 and I'm there with a D plus. I'm like, perfect. Okay, amazing. But I think that it teaches you a lot of things in I like to kind of view it with different lenses. So I think from a confidence aspect, adversity, like if you have adversity in your life and you can be resilient and kind of try to overcome it by just being committed and being consistent and saying, okay, this is one, in the context of academia, this is one bad grade, one low grade. It doesn't define my worth as a person. It doesn't mean that I treat others poorly. It doesn't mean that I am worth less as a human being. And you know what, there's worse things in life. I think that's something that really helped keep me grounded, is just always reminding myself that there's worse things in life. Does it suck to get a D? Yes. Does it suck that I wanted to go have fun with my friends all summer and now I have to retake calculus in the summer? Yes. But then I'm like, you know what? I I'm kind of, I call it annoyingly optimistic, but I am genuinely a very kind of glass half full person. So I try to say, being in school, being in university, it's a huge privilege. I'm able to be educated. It doesn't always feel that way, but it is a huge privilege to be able to learn. There's a lot of people that would want to be in my position. So I think it teaches a lot of confidence, which goes a long, long way, especially if you want to be in school for a really long time later on. Like, you're going to need that inner confidence. And I think adversity can teach you, like, okay, you're going to have a lot of roadblocks, especially if you choose medicine, if you choose that path. It's not easy. There's a lot of challenges. Mm-hmm. But then you can kind of pause in the hard moments and look back and say, listen, I've done hard things before. I've had poor grades in the past. I failed in the past and I overcame it. So I'm in a challenging situation now, but I overcame it in the past, so I can overcome it now. So I think it's very helpful for confidence. And yeah, I think it's not in a strange way, but I think it makes me more relatable. Not in a sense that I want to be relatable, but I find that I can connect with a lot of people, and a lot of my mentors that I connected with really well. It was because they were just very vulnerable about their adversities, and they were very kind of vocal about it. Said, like, listen, I struggled here. This is how I came out of it. And at the end of the day, I really value human connection and being able to connect with others. And I think that a way that you can do that is kind of through adversity, but then also vulnerability and opening up about your adversities and sharing how you overcame it. And then it feels nice because you're kind of using your adversities as a superpower to help others kind of elevate, if that makes sense. But
yeah, no, and you, like, just in your personality, talking to you, like, you beam with confidence. Like, when you're at a little bit of a low like that, was there anyone there to, like, pick you up, keep you motivated?
That's a great question. I think that I'm really lucky to be very close with my family. So I think being an immigrant, there's pros and cons, because I immigrated here when I was quite young and we didn't know anybody in the city. And that was difficult in the sense that, especially in Spanish culture, you have 5 billion cousins and your grandparents and the weekly dinners and all of that. So I didn't grow up with that, but I did have a very core group, which was my 2 little brothers and my parents. So they were always there for me. I'm really lucky to have very amazing friends and just a really good circle around me. And the older I get, the more I realize that there's so much value in taking care of your relationships and showing up for people. Because, like, in those low moments, those are the people that lift you up. So they were definitely there for me. And I think at the same time, it sort of meshes into why I started with my content creation, just because I found that having the gym and exercise and fitness was an amazing outlet for me. So I played competitive sports pretty much all my life. And then if anyone listening has played sports, kind of going from grade 12 and then you graduate and then you go to university and all of a sudden you don't have practice like 5 nights a week anymore. You're like, what do I kind of do with this time? And it sort of strips away a big part of your identity, I found. So finding fitness as that outlet was really helpful for me, and that was really uplifting as well. And then it made it even better that I was able to kind of start a platform and share my passion for that. But yeah, I would say my family and my amazing friends in fitness definitely were things that kept me grounded and kind of helped me through those lower moments.
Yeah, no, I can really relate to that dilemma. Once I stopped playing hockey, you kind of have like a little bit of identity crisis, like who am I? But then I quickly realized that that focus I had in pursuing the sport that I was playing shifted that focus to my new interest, which was school, right? Um, so you talked about how critical your family was, especially when your confidence was at a little bit of a low. How did they feel when you dropped out halfway through your 5th year and were like, I'm packing my bags, I'm going to Italy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I had my parents here to answer that. Actually, I should ask them. I should talk to them about that because I've never actually sat them down and asked them, like, what did you guys think that night? But yeah, that was that was a funny day, to put it in one way. I think that my parents growing up, they've always really valued travel. I mean, they kind of dropped everything and moved to Canada, and that is a very adventurous thing to do, to put it one way. But growing up, they always really kind of encouraged my brothers and I to travel and explore new things, explore new places. And my dad had a crazy childhood slash teenagerhood, if that's even a word, but he grew up in Chile, and then at 18 he got kicked out of his house, and then he went to go live in Europe for 7 years, and he just lived the craziest life. He lived in Italy, then he went to UCLA for a bit. He was like a videographer.
Oh, wow.
He met like crazy people. He's like the most charismatic person I know. Anyways, he could have stories to tell for hours and hours and hours.
Might have to have him on next.
I know, honestly. Every time I speak about my dad, it just ends up with the person being like, I want to meet him. But he always had crazy stories to tell. And my family, again, we're very close. So we would have a lot of long kind of dinner room discussions, and he would just tell us stories. And I think that growing up, I was always like, oh, like I would love to do something crazy like my dad. On a superficial level, I always joked, I was like, I just want to have better stories to tell than him, because he always just monopolizes and has the best stories, and it's not fair. But on a deeper level, I think that my parents really instilled a kind of passion for adventure and travel and all these things. So yeah, it was something that it was always kind of in the background. Like I was always kind of throwing it around and being like, so like, what would you guys think if I like moved to Europe tomorrow? And they was always like, oh, that's so funny. Like you're in undergrad, you're applying to med school, you're not going to do it. And I think that, yeah, I just kind of hit the point where I was in the middle of my 5th year, and I wasn't in school for the right reasons anymore, is a way that I like to put it. So I've always loved school, and I usually was genuinely excited to study, and I loved what I learned. And then during my 5th year, I was more so just doing it as a Band-Aid solution to help get my grades up to get into med school. Like med school was the end goal. This was a stepping stone, let's say. But I wasn't enjoying it. I was taking quote unquote bird courses that I didn't enjoy and I wasn't interested in. And I find it very difficult to succeed in things that I find boring. So I wasn't like, I was supposed to be in school to be getting like straight A's, and I wasn't even getting amazing grades, and I was bored. And I was just like, this kind of sucks. If I want to be a doctor and I want to go to school for however many more years, I don't want to leave my academic experience on a sour note, because when I finished 4th year, I was like, wow, this was amazing. I really enjoyed my experience in undergrad. I loved all the medicine and science I learned, and I'm excited to continue studying. And then I realized in 5th year, I was kind of just not going in the right direction. I wasn't looking forward to studying anymore. I was like, oh, maybe university sucks. Maybe I don't want to keep doing this. So then that's kind of why I made the decision. And then in terms of moving to Europe, I think they were like a little bit shocked, but they didn't really question it. I've done a lot of crazy things in my life, and they're very supportive. They're very supportive, which I'm really lucky to have them as parents, because they support me in a lot of ways. So they're just like, okay, if you really think this is the right thing, we'll support you. We're like kind of terrified, but okay. And then I was off like 2 months later. So
yeah, no, that was definitely a bold decision.
Yeah.
And taking that time away, right? I think you mentioned at the conference you spent 6 months in Europe.
Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself during that time?
I think so much, and I think there's still so much that I don't even realize I've learned, that sometimes I'll just be walking and thinking and be like, oh wow, the fact that I moved away really taught me this about myself. I think one of the biggest things is realizing that you can reinvent yourself whenever you want. There aren't really many rules around that, and I think that was one of the most beneficial things about leaving and going somewhere where no one knew me and I didn't know anybody, because mentally I was just kind of like, I can be anyone right now. And I think having grown up in Ottawa and having done, all my schooling here and my undergrad, you see yourself through the lens of how you think other people see you. So I had my group of friends and they're all amazing and wonderful and I still see them all the time. But when you grow up with people and you're always kind of in that same echo chamber of people that, they've seen you from young to growing older, you kind of act in a way, at least I did, I'm speaking for myself, but I acted in a way that I think reflected what I wanted them to think of me. That doesn't really even make sense. But essentially, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that moving away really taught me that there's no rules and you can kind of just wake up whatever day and kind of reinvent yourself and do things differently. And I sort of took a big 360 because I went from being in my fifth year and I was kind of doing school part-time, I'll say, because I was just going out with my friends all the time. I was like partying a ton and just not feeling my best. And then I moved to Italy and I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. But it was a lot harder to do that when I was here because it was, again, like my echo chamber. I was that really extroverted, fun, social friend. I found it really hard to say no to, going out and saying no to plans. And if I did say no to plans, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm staying home and I'm such a loser, and, like the negative self-talk. So I think just leaving and then realizing that there's no rules in life and you can reinvent yourself, that is a very powerful thing. And this doesn't really relate to medicine, I guess, but just how important communication is. And I think that's why I've developed a big passion for communication and just trying to improve it and stuff, because I realized going to Italy, I didn't speak Italian, so it was really difficult to talk to people. So being able to communicate well, I think I guess it's something that was highlighted as well. But yeah, lots of things for sure.
How many languages do you speak?
3.5. If you count, I count Italian as
English,
my half.
French,
Spanish,
and a little bit of
0.5 Italian. You're probably Italian. Are you Italian?
I wasn't taught.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Okay.
No, I might have to take a 6-month hiatus.
Honestly. Yeah, good idea.
Learn too.
I back it.
So you started in biomed before switching into the TMM program.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain a little bit about how the program works, as well why you think the TMM program is beneficial for students considering a career in medicine?
So I'm not 100% sure if it's still the same now, but I will describe it in the way that I knew it when I was doing it, which was 4 years ago now. I would have graduated from TMM, but essentially when I was applying and when I was going through it, it was a research intensive program, but it was in addition to a Bachelor of Science. So it's not in silo, it's not its own program, but you have to do 2 years of undergrad and then you can apply into it. And it's research intensive in the sense that you have to do mandatory research projects. So I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, I did a research project in third year, and then I think I did like 2 or 3 from research projects in fourth year. And then with 2 of the research projects in fourth year, you do a poster presentation. And then the thesis honors project is worth more than in biomed. So I believe that in biomed, my thesis project would have been worth 9 credits. And then in TMM, it was worth 12 credits. So you have more time allocated towards your thesis project. Hence, all of these research things is what makes it a more research intensive program. And it's a smaller program, so I believe that still stands. It's not as many people, so you have to apply into it and interview and everything. I felt like it was kind of like a mini med school. I was like, why am I interviewing for undergrad? This feels weird. But anyways, it is a smaller program, so I think there's pros and cons. I found more pros because you can really connect with a lot of professors, and I think that, again, I'm very passionate about mentorship and networking and everything, and I think that being able to have those one-on-one relationships with the professors was super helpful, not only for getting letters for med school, but also just, building up your network. And as someone who, none of my family's in medicine, so a lot of my network I had to build. It wasn't kind of like I didn't go home and I had my
You were
parents.
in a Nepo baby.
Yeah, essentially, in other words. So I really had to put myself out there, and if I hadn't asked for something, I wouldn't get it. So having TMM sort of facilitate these relationships, and I would have kind of cold emailed or cold knocked on the door and been like, "Hi, I'm Catalina. Like, I'm an undergrad student. I want this." But like it feels nicer and easier and more organic when you're in the program and you're like, "Oh, like, can I ask you a question after class?" So that was really nice for the networking. And you are surrounded by a lot of very like-minded people, which there's pros and cons. I think that, I mean, I don't know if pre-med culture has changed nowadays, but it can feel very cutthroat and competitive at times. And again, I use the comparison of when, I didn't have great grades and then I just heard this echo chamber of everyone having 4.0s and being so smart and curing cancer. And I was like, whoa, like, there's no way I'm getting into med school. You guys are all getting into med school way before I ever do, and you're all taking the spots. So it can feel intimidating. But again, I try to flip the situation and just say, if you're going into medicine, this is your reality, right? You're never going to walk into a room and feel like you're the smartest person in the room. And that actually can be a huge benefit, right? Because it pushes you to work harder. It pushes you to ask questions and be more curious. So instead of trying to kind of internalize the feeling of being in a small classroom and feeling like everyone was smarter than me and being like, oh, I'm dumb and they're all smart, I tried to just say, okay, we can all be smart in our own ways and all these people have things to teach me. So that was helpful, and a huge percentage ended up going off into medicine. So it's kind of cool now that, I see my colleagues that were in TMM and now I'm going to be doing electives, and we kind of cross paths and I'm like, oh my gosh, how are you? It's so nice to see you again. So you form a kind of close-knit network, which again, it's what you make of it. There's pros and cons, but I think I enjoyed that more than anything. So yeah.
And so after your undergrad, how many schools did you apply to?
I applied to one school. I only applied to Ottawa.
Okay. And I remember at the conference, you shared the moment you received your letter of offer. Talk about that.
Yeah. This is like, I'm so mean to my parents. But basically, the first time I applied to medical school, I only applied to Ottawa. The reason being that's not a very normal thing, and usually you kind of want to apply broadly because it's so competitive. I got a 123 in cars 2 years in a row, so it wasn't really by choice. If I could do cars and I could read, then I would have probably applied to more schools, but that wasn't the case. So yeah, I applied to Ottawa the first time, didn't get an interview, and then the second time it was kind of on a whim, and I was like, oh, probably won't get an interview, whatever, I'm gonna live my life, go to Italy, and I don't know how, live my best Europe girl life. But then, yeah, when I was in Italy, I ended up getting my interview invite, and then interviewed, and then got accepted, and I FaceTimed my parents. I found out by accident. I don't think I've told the story in terms of kind of how I found out, but essentially what happened is you receive your notification of if you got accepted or not. I think it's on, is it uOttawa? Is that, I don't know.
OMSAS or?
Not uOttawa. That's like undergrad. So yeah, on OMSAS, they notify you, I believe it's at midnight or something like that. Like there's a specific time that they notify you at. And everyone was waiting, and they were like anxiously waiting because it was supposed to be at midnight. And I was doing pretty intensive interview prep with one of my friends back in Canada. And she's a phenomenal candidate. She is in medical school now. But it was one of those things that, again, like retrospectively, I like to say I was a pretty confident applicant, but I wasn't even as confident as I think I verbalized. Because in my brain, I was like, she's getting in way before me. Like she is brilliant. She is very competent. Like she's going to get in. And if she doesn't get in, there's no chance I'm getting in. So then we were waiting for whatever the deadline to come, midnight. And she was texting me at like 12:05, 12:06. And she was like, oh, I don't have anything. And I was living in Italy at the time. So everyone was asleep and the timing was all off. And I was waiting to, I didn't want to open OMSAS right away because I wanted, my parents to be on FaceTime and everything. So essentially I just wanted to postpone it and wait until everyone was awake so all the attention could be on me. And if I had to cry, I could cry. But then I was confused and I was like, oh my gosh, OMSAS is glitching because my friend is saying there's nothing there. And, if I thought she was going to get in. This is so weird. I'm just going to check it because it's glitching and there's going to be nothing there. And then I went to go check and it said I got accepted. And I was like, this is so weird. And it was a very strange mix of emotions because first of all, it was denial. I was like, wait, but she's supposed to get in and I'm not. Like, this is wrong. And then I like reread it 10 times and I was like, I don't think like I suck at cars, but I don't think I'm that bad at reading. Like, I think it says I'm accepted. And then I felt really bad because it sucks, right? Like, I think that's something that is unfortunate about just pre-med or anytime you're applying for anything that's competitive and you're prepping with friends. You want everyone to get in with you. You want everyone to succeed. And it's really sad if you have friends or colleagues that maybe don't get the spot and you get the spot. And there's like, that was a whole other thing. But anyways, all that to say, I accidentally found out, and then I was just kind of sitting there stunned for a little bit, and then I FaceTimed my parents, and obviously they knew why I was FaceTiming them. And then my mom was like, "Oh, like, so what happened?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't get in." And I just paused, and she was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I was like, "I'm kidding." And she was
Oh
like,
my God.
and then it was really funny. You saw the video. So she was like, "Oh my gosh." And then she's freaking out. And then she pans it to my dad. And my dad has bedhead because they're both in bed asleep. But yeah, it was a really, I'm happy that I got it captured on video because it was a very like special moment. I think I gave my parents a heart attack, but it's okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but no, that's really amazing, especially too coming from parents who were immigrants. Like, you know, they always want they want the best for their child. That's why they move, right? And for you to be on your way to becoming a physician, like, they must be the proudest parents in the world. That's really amazing. Okay, so we talked about medicine. We were talking about school a lot. Now let's shift away from that. Let's talk about Catalina, the fitness coach. You've also built a career as an online fitness coach. What first drew you into coaching, and how critical has fitness been in your journey through medicine?
I think what first drew me, actually, I'll answer in the other way. So I think that in terms of how important fitness has been for me in medicine, I touched on it briefly in terms of when I started undergrad and I just kind of felt lost without having sports and everything. So I didn't know what to do. I was playing intramurals, but I was like, okay, I'm playing once a week. I want to do more sports than this. And I kind of got into fitness and going to the gym by just following these influencers that were on Instagram at the time. And I had no clue what I was doing. I would just look at their videos and be like, okay, she looks like she knows what she's doing. So I'm going to copy paste and go to the gym. And I'd have my phone out. I was like, am I doing this right? I don't know, but whatever.
Relatable.
I'm just going to do it. It's so funny. I was reading my old notes app and like one of the exercises I'd like written out my workout for the day. And one of them I called it like orange shirt girl from, and I put like her at, because I think it was like lateral raises or something, but I didn't know what it was called. So I was like, oh, exercise is orange shirt girl at whatever her Instagram was, because I just had no clue what I was doing. But then eventually, when you have no clue what you're doing and you just show up enough and you're consistent, you kind of at least start looking like you know what you're doing. And yeah, the fitness just became a huge outlet for me. It gave me something where when I was burnt out, I had something to turn to. You guys are all smart. Like, it's like there's so many benefits to fitness, not only like in terms of like physically, but, you know, mentally and endorphins and all of that. So it just was amazing. My grades got so much better when I started being very intentional with my workouts and kind of treating them like appointments and just showing up consistently. So that was super important, I think, in my undergrad, and it gave me a lot of confidence, not only in the gym, but outside of the gym as well, because I was like, okay, if I'm working out consistently, I'm making a promise to myself. And every Sunday, I plan out my weeks, and I say every Sunday, I'm going to work out 5 times this week. And keeping those promises to yourself, I think, is very important to build self-confidence, because I believe that confidence is not a way that you look. It's more so an energy and a demeanor, and the way to build that up is to say, I'm going to do this, and to actually do it. And micro actions that you can do to fulfill that is what creates a general demeanor of confidence. So I think that was super helpful. And then by the time I was applying to medical school, I had been posting fitness content on social media for a while. I didn't have a huge platform, but it was very much just a creative outlet that I really enjoyed, sharing my passion about fitness and why I loved it so much, and meeting like-minded people through social media. And yeah, I just kept posting through medical school. And then around, I want to say end of first year, starting second year of medical school, I had a company that reached out to me And they work with a couple of different coaches, and their sort of business strategy is essentially reaching out to coaches that are certified. So I'm a certified personal trainer, and I got the certification to kind of just add legitimacy to my name, because I was posting fitness content, but I was like, if people go on my page, I want to be able to say that I'm actually certified and I know what I'm doing and I'm not just giving random advice. So this company reached out to me and they were like, hey, we can build you a website, we can build you an app, and you're a certified coach, so we can do everything for you, and you're kind of the face of your business. And I was super sketched out, and I told my parents, and they said, absolutely not. That's the worst idea ever. They're going to scam you and take all your money, because they wanted me to pay money to build a website. And I was like, guys, I kind of have a good feeling. And I spoke to some people that had worked with this company previously. They all vouched for them. And yeah, then I kind of just started my online coaching, and it was amazing. I think it's one of those things that teaches you that there's never a perfect time to do something, and you're never going to feel ready to do things, so you just have to do them. Because I prolonged it for so long. My account manager was like, okay, your website is built, your app is ready, everything looks good, let's launch. And I was like, oh no, like I don't want to. And I'd kind of come up with excuses, and then eventually she just kind of sat me down. She's like, listen, you're good to go. It's all just fear in your mind that you're scared of what people are going to think. You're scared that your business isn't going to take off. You're scared of failing. If you either decide that we're going to go ahead with this, or just don't do it, because fear of failure can't be a reason that you keep postponing. And yeah, then the next day I just kind of launched my business, and I was like, hey everyone, I have a business now if you want to work with me. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I knew what I was doing in the sense of fitness, but I'm not a business person. I didn't really know what I was doing business wise, but it's been phenomenal. And I think that business is something that's very undertaught in medicine, because we're medical students, we're not business majors. But essentially, especially when you're a physician, you are an independent business owner, right? Like, you are your business. You're like on CPSO, you have your certified physician, I don't know what it stands for, but you're basically like taking care of your own finances. If you go into family medicine, you might have overhead you need to deal with. If you're a surgeon, you're probably going to need an assistant. You're going to need to manage people. You're going to need to manage finances. There's a lot of business that goes into medicine, which I think is very undertaught. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise. I think it's one of those things that retrospectively examining, having started a business and having a business, I'm like, wow, there's a lot that I've learned from it that I didn't think that I would gain, but I have. And like, when I speak to my preceptors and staff about it, they're the ones that kind of pickpocket, and they're like, oh, this is really helpful, and it'll help you kind of transition into being an actual physician and dealing with your own businesses and finances and all these things. So that's kind of the long-winded story as to how I started from just posting on Instagram and then grew it into a business. But yeah, it's been wonderful. I have amazing clients, and I love what I do, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And how supporting clients on their fitness journeys, is there any ways that you took things from that you think you will use supporting patients as a future physician?
That's a great question. And yes, absolutely. I think that it's really taught me that when I've worked with clients, I always had the perspective of my own fitness, right? So everyone, I tend to forget this often, but everyone views the world with their own lens, and your lens is just crafted from life experiences. So everything you've lived through and things that have happened to you, things that you've done, that's the way you see the world. So I think that working with all of these clients, it was a great experience, because I was able to see so many different backgrounds, and everyone kind of has their own struggles. And the reason I first mentioned kind of my own fitness journey is because I always saw fitness in silo with kind of, okay, this is my fitness journey, and this is the reason that I wanted to get into fitness, and this is why I love it so much. So almost like a selfish perspective, but working with so many different clients, all of them had different reasonings as to why they wanted to get into fitness. And that was actually, all of my clients can attest to this. My first onboarding question when I would have my client calls to onboard my clients is, what is your why? And I would just leave it as a very open-ended question. And I would just kind of ask, like, what is your why? Why do you want to, start working with me? Why do you want me as your fitness coach? Why do you even care to start fitness? Why now? Like, all of these questions. And getting to kind of the deep-rooted answer of the why was crucial in helping my clients excel, just because it's not easy, right? Like, it's, if you live a certain lifestyle and maybe you're new to fitness and you have no clue what's going on, and you feel like you walk into a gym and you think everyone knows what they're doing and you're the only person that you feel like you're like, oh, I have no clue. It's not easy at all. But we would always kind of return to the why. So if they shared their why with me, I could be like, listen, I know you've had a really rough week. We've been super busy. You feel disappointed. You feel like you haven't shown up to your workouts, but this is your why. And you shared your why with me. And that was very helpful for my clients to kind of just help ground them and bring them back to earth and be like, okay, you know what? Like, it's a bad week, not a bad life. I'll restart tomorrow. And I think that I've carried a lot of that into patient care, because especially I like to use the example of when I did a rotation in family medicine, and I see a lot of, not arguments, but, you know, you can have a patient that comes in, and as medical students and healthcare practitioners, it can be very frustrating if you feel like your patients don't listen. So, you know, you tell a patient, go home, take these medications. You have this disease. You need this medication to make you not be sick. And then they come back a month later, and if it's diabetes, let's say, and they're not taking their meds, and you're like, why aren't you taking your meds? And then that's where the communication gap can be kind of different, because then the physician can view it from just, this patient, like, they're not listening to me. They don't want to take their meds. They don't want to get better. They're wasting my time. But if you can get to the why from a patient perspective, it can be really helpful. So I had a scenario like that where I had a patient that was coming in, and we did her blood work, and her blood glucose was just crazy elevated. And she was like, yeah, I'm not taking my medications. Like, I have diabetes and I'm not taking my meds. And I was like, okay, why? And in that moment, I think that coaching was really helpful, because maybe I could have just, you know, rolled my eyes and been like, okay, that's really stupid, and, you know, gotten upset. And I've seen it kind of happen sometimes, unfortunately, but kind of approaching it with the lens of curiosity and saying why. And then she just had an understanding that she had another disease essentially, and she thought that her diabetes meds were impacting this other disease and essentially making her sicker, which completely was incorrect scientifically. But also, it's kind of valid, right? Like, the more niche you get in your specialty, like, medicine is very complex. Nobody in my family's in medicine. So even when I go home talking about medical things, I'm like, oh, like, it's hard to understand. And sometimes, again, you're in this silo with your colleagues, and you discuss medical terminology, and you're throwing words around like hypertension and blah, blah, blah. And if a med student is like, oh, they're hypertensive, and you're like, what's that? They'd look at you like you have three heads. Like, it's the most incomprehensible. Like, what do you mean you don't know what that is? But yeah, I think it's been really helpful to kind of have my clients and understand that everyone comes from different backgrounds, and proper communication and just approaching a lot of scenarios with curiosity rather than judgment is sort of a translatable skill, I guess we'll call it, that I think my coaching has really helped me with in terms of my patient interactions.
You know, I think taking that human-centered approach is really critical for building trust, right? So we mentioned this earlier in the podcast. You co-founded the Rise and Run crew, which has quickly become one of Ottawa's fastest growing run clubs. Talk to us a little bit about the club, how it started, and the whole vision behind it.
So how it started, I always joke that the way that my brain works is I get an idea, and either the idea is quickly discarded, or I hyperfixate and become obsessive, and I can't sleep until I act on the idea. So that's kind of how I think Rise and Run started. So February 2024, I want to say, I went to Toronto, and I went to a run club there, and I was completely new to the running scene. I wasn't a runner by any means. I didn't know what run clubs were. I just kind of had a friend who dragged me out and was like, oh, this would be a lot of fun. You should join me. And I was like, oh, fine. Like, whatever.
Is she the one you co-founded the club?
No.
Okay.
So she's just, she's a friend.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a friend in Toronto. And I went with her, and then I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. Like, I went for a run. I feel great. It was like super nice. We were able to get coffee after, and everyone's kind of chatty. My favorite hobby is talking. So I'm like, this is so fun. Everyone wants to talk. Everyone's in a good mood. This is so much fun. And then I was super excited to go home and go to another run club when I went home. And I did that. I went to a run club. If anyone listening is into run clubs, it's Ottawa City Run Club, and they're amazing. Like they're a huge run club here. They've been around for like 9-10 years, I want to say. But my only issue with that is that it was at 7:30 p.m. So I'm a grandmother and I go to bed at 9 p.m. and I like to go to bed at 9 and wake up at 5. And I've always just kind of been a morning person and I like to do my workouts in the morning. And a second issue is at baseline, I'm very high energy and workouts make that even worse. So if I go for a run, if I go to a spin class, I walk out and I feel like I just went clubbing with my friends. Like I'm like talking a million miles a minute. I'm like so energetic.
On a high.
Yeah, exactly. The endorphins. So I went to this run club and it was Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. And at the time I was living at home. So I had to drive like 30 minutes to go home. And by the time I got home, it was like 9-10. But then I was still just like crazy, like bothering my family, being like, guys, like who wants to hang out? I like have, and they, like my family, they were like, you cannot go to night workouts anymore. Number one. And then number two, like I didn't sleep that night. So it's like, hey, this is a very fun thing, but it's bad for my health. Like I can't be living on this like 4 hour sleep thing and I can't be working out this late because it doesn't work with who I am. So then I was like, okay, so next logical step is let me find an early morning run club. And I looked everywhere and I couldn't find one. So I was like, that's super annoying. Like that sucks. What do you mean there's no early morning run club? What about the people that want to run in the morning? So then I was doing a lot of spin classes at the time, and I would always do, it was a 6:15 a.m. spin class. And I had one friend there that was always there. And that was like important for me because I was like, hey, I know she likes her early morning workouts and she's always there. She's consistent. She's reliable. So then I went up to her, I think like the week after I went to Ottawa City Run Club. And I was like, hey, I have an idea. Do you want to start a run club with me? And she was just kind of like, maybe. I don't know. And I was like, okay, amazing. So I'm going to make a TikTok video and I'm going to see if people are interested. And if people are interested, we can start it like next week. And she's like, it's very funny because she's like the yin to my yang. So I'm like, just like the crazy, like, okay, I have an idea. Let's do it. We don't need to think about it. No logic, spontaneous. She's in law school. She's about to write her bar, I believe. But she's very
Oh, wow.
like logical, organized. Like, okay, this is a great idea, but let's like de-escalate about 25 steps and start from point A. So it's funny because we're very, very different, but we work very well together. So yeah, I told her, I was like, okay, I'm going to make the TikTok video tonight and I'll let you know how it goes. And then I made the TikTok video and it was just me speaking very informally, just saying, hey, I like to run. I like to run with people and I like to run in the morning. Would anybody be interested in an early morning run club? And then, yeah, the power of TikTok, everyone just commented and people were like, oh, this is amazing. This is a great idea. So I was like, okay, amazing. So then I reposted it to Instagram and it gained a lot of traction, still a lot of high interest. And yeah, we just kind of went from there. And my friend, Camille, she's my co-founder, we mapped out the route and then kind of evolved and went from there. And in terms of a vision, I don't know if we necessarily had a vision. It was more so just like we really just started it organically and I think for the right reasons. And I think that's the reason that it kind of picked up and did well. Because we were just like, listen, we like to run and we're going to start this run club and maybe 3 people are going to come every week. And that's okay because that's 3 more people that are running with us and enjoying a morning run than if it was just us 2. And I think that having been kind of in the business sphere now, if you start things for the right reasons and you're not, just looking for clout or chasing money or kind of chasing more superficial things, people pick up on that. They pick up on the energy. They pick up on the fact that, you're kind of genuine and doing things for the right reason. And I think that's very contagious. And now here we are, which is like kind of crazy that it's kind of self-sufficient running now. But yeah.
No, I think that's really important to hear. I find a lot too in the pre-med culture, you're told to fit in this mold. And a lot of students in my cohort, I've noticed the extracurriculars activities that they're doing are more of a means to an end rather than they're doing it because they're passionate about it. They really enjoy it. And I think hearing this is really important for a lot of pre-med students out there because they can know that, okay, I can do what I love, I can do what I like and still get into medicine, right? Rather than crafting this cookie cutter application. What's been the most rewarding part about starting this whole run club?
I think there's a lot of different aspects. So I think one thing that personally really stands out to me is the people that have come up to me and just been like, hey, this has been amazing for not only my physical health, but my mental health. So I remember I had someone, it was one of the first couple of meets, but I was chatting with him afterwards and he was like, yeah, this has been so great. I just moved here and I was partying a ton, and every Wednesday was wine Wednesday, and Thursday, like thirsty Thursday, is like a reason to drink, a reason to go out and party. And he was just opening up to me saying that a big reason he was going out so much and trying to socialize was just because he didn't want to be drinking and partying all the time, but he more so just wanted to meet people and he wanted to connect. And at the end of the day, we're social creatures, right? Like humans want to connect with others. They want to have a space that feels safe and where you can be vulnerable and meet like-minded people, and that makes us just feel good. Like it's part of like one of the best parts of being human. So he came up to me and he was telling me that he was like, this has genuinely changed my life. Now I go to bed like at 10 p.m. on Thursdays to make sure that I don't sleep through my alarm so I can show up to Friday morning runs.
Wow.
I've like met one of my bestest friends here and we're like going for dinner tonight. And he was just saying that it was so impactful and it really shaped his life in a positive way. And then somebody else was saying like he just moved here from Toronto, and again, he didn't really know any people and he was working from home. So it was really a lot of, you wake up, you open your laptop, you're typing on Teams, maybe you have some meetings every now and then you close it and you're like, okay, now what do I do? And the only really avenue to socialize and meet people again is kind of going to the bars and drinking and things like that. But then this guy too as well was like, oh, I've met really great people through this, and it's been one of the only avenues where I've been able to show up and socialize. So I think for me, one of the most impactful things is connecting with people and hearing their stories. And it just is so significant to me to hear how this can create kind of positive change in other people's lives and kind of lift them up. And I think everyone kind of has it in them. Like I think sometimes people are intimidated and they're like, oh, I don't run fast, or like I don't run at all, like I can't come to your run club. And I mean this genuinely. I tell people, I'm like, you don't, like, it's not about the running, like no offense, I'm like, I don't care about the running, but it's like, it's the socializing, it's just being around people. Yeah. It's like everyone is there,
community aspect
exactly, like everyone's there because they want to meet other people, and if they wanted to run alone they would run alone, but everyone that's showing up there wants to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves. And that's kind of what community is. So I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the community aspect. I think that's been probably the most impactful
for sure.
part of of just kind of seeing it grow.
And how big has the club grown to now?
I haven't been in a while, to be honest, which like makes me so sad. But last week I went, I think like maybe 100 people go, like maybe 75. It kind of fluctuates, ebbs and flows, but yeah, it's nice because I think the times that I have been able to go and fit it into my schedule in the past couple of weeks, you always see some familiar faces and you see people that are there week after week after week, which is really, really nice. So yeah, it's grown to like a nice level, I'd say.
Well, with the rigorous schedule of med school, I think it's understandable, right?
I'd hope so.
So you build a social media platform of over 65,000 followers across TikTok and Instagram, if I'm not mistaken, which is no small feat by any means. But beyond the numbers, what kind of impact do you hope to create through your online presence?
I think, again, I love the word multifaceted, but I think it's the best word to use here. So I think that from one aspect, mentorship is really important to me. So just kind of, again, being very open, transparent, vulnerable with my story and inspiring others, because I genuinely do believe that everyone has it in them, especially in medicine. I've been in the shoes of myself where I was like, oh, wow, I really wish that I had more mentors that, were maybe opening up more and showing me that it's okay to not have a perfect kind of cookie cutter road to medicine. So one big thing that I hope to have a positive impact is, I think, just inspiring and mentoring, I think, pre-med students, and inspiring, like, if medicine is for them, that it's a great career and that you don't need to have, the perfect GPA and the perfect perfect, I don't know, like CV. You don't like everything doesn't have to be perfect for you to be worthy of applying and worthy of being a medical student and a future physician. And I think something that I've grown into more lately, but I think facilitating connection is something that I find really rewarding, and I hope to have a kind of big impact in that aspect as well. So I had an event last week where I called it Back to Med School panel, I think I don't know, I had like made up the name, but anyways, I think something I realized that I'm really passionate about is just not only helping myself, but kind of like handing out resources to other people. So my thought process with that event was that I was going to reach out to a bunch of residents and ask them, what are the best ways that I can excel and go above and beyond in my rotation so I can hopefully match to residency and get a job. And then I realized, I'm a very outgoing person, and I don't have kind of any fears like going up to someone and asking for what I want. But a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my friends are not that way. So I was just kind of like, it'd be really nice if I could get all of these brilliant minds of the residents and their great feedback and their great opinions into a room, and then also have them as a source of information for people that maybe didn't think of doing this, or maybe people are just more shy, and like that's okay. You don't need to be like the most extroverted person in the room, but everyone still kind of deserves like listening to this information and having access to all this stuff. So I think facilitating those connections and just having this event and seeing there was like some pre-med students and some like med school classmates, and just seeing them chatting with the residents, and then some of the pre-med students talking to the med students. I was just like, this is so nice. Like, I'm so happy that these people are having these connections that maybe otherwise they wouldn't have. So I'm really grateful for my platform, because I think with my platform is not one of the only reasons, but a big reason that I'm able to have this reach and have these people come out and then have these people attend and then make these connections. So yeah, I'd say connection and inspiration / motivation, I guess. And then still kind of like the OG reason, which is just kind of promoting health and fitness and wellness and not losing yourself or a sense of identity, I think, in medicine, which can be hard because I think, like you said, you sometimes feel like you have to be in this cookie cutter perfect scenario to feel like you fit in and belong. So I feel like I have to fight really hard to remind myself that I don't have to do that, and that it's actually an asset to, strongly believe in the things that you love and your passions and stuff. So trying to highlight that and showing people that you can love the things that you love, and you should love the things that you love, and not trying to just be a copy paste of other people. So
yeah, no, for sure. And on your social media, I've seen that you share a lot of insights into the clinical years of your medical school, moving through clerkship and looking ahead to the residency application process. What has this stage of training been like for you so far, and how has it shaped the way that you're thinking about your future specialty?
it's definitely a transition, to put it one way. So the first 2 years of med school, pre-clerkship, it's very much learning medicine by the book, and you're learning what you're supposed to do. And in theory, if situation A happened, this is how you respond. And then you're just kind of thrown into the deep end in clerkship, because you go from just, sitting in a classroom, and it's very similar to undergrad, and you sit and you listen and you integrate information that you would then regurgitate on an exam, and you're passing your exams, you're okay. And then you're just kind of thrown into clinical scenarios. And on day one, like most of my friends, you're just kind of like, okay, like go see the patient and take in like a year. Like for me, I was like, I've never spoken to a patient before alone. Like, what do you mean just go see the patient? And you just kind of figure it out. So there's a lot of growth, I think, as a person. It's very rewarding because you're constantly pushed out of your comfort zone. Like I have some friends that, again, I'm very extroverted. I love chatting with people, but that's not the case for everyone. And it's not a requirement to be extroverted to go to medical school, right? So some people are maybe like more shy, more introverted, which is totally fine. But then these people are also kind of getting thrown into the deep end and just kind of like, okay, go speak to these people. But it's really cool to see, because I've seen these people also, and myself, grow into someone that you get very comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, essentially. And then I think towards the end of clerkship, like now that I'm done, I'm just like, wow, there's like very little that could faze me. Like at the beginning of clerkship, if I had a preceptor that was like, oh, you are not very good at suturing, that's a very poor suture, I would have probably just been like, oh my gosh, I'm so disappointed. Like, this is like horrible. Like, I would have like called my parents. And now it's like, this happened to me when I was on surgery, and they were just like, oh, that's really not a good knot. I was like, yeah, sorry. Anyways, like, it's just kind of like, I didn't take it personally. And not to say I didn't care. Like, I cared. And I was like, yeah, like, I know. Can you teach me to do it better? But there's just, you don't take anything personally, which I think is just outside of the scope of medicine. It's a great asset to have, because if you take things personally, like, life can be really hard sometimes because you're always just kind of on the lookout and you're more in defensive mode. So it really teaches you to not take things personally. You get really good at accepting feedback. So that's like, that can always feel like a weird thing, especially after you finish a day with someone and going up to them and saying, hi, can you tell me how I did? And as humans, we don't, like, it's uncomfortable to hear someone tell us how, like, what you suck at. Like, no one wants to hear it. It's not fun. But I think clerkship really teaches you to seek it out for a greater purpose, which is just to take really great care of our patients, because the feedback is not to devalue you as a human and to tell you that you as a person suck. It's to improve patient care and improve efficiency and improve teamwork and flow and whatever else. So yeah, it's been really challenging, but I think it's been a great challenge, and I've enjoyed it. And in terms of future specialty, I am applying to anesthesiology.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so it's always kind of been on my radar. And I think that having done the rotation and kind of completed all my rotations, I had a little quarter life crisis like moment when I did orthopedic surgery, because I really loved it. And I don't know, maybe if you ask me tomorrow, like, maybe I'm going to say ortho again, but anesthesia for sure. And yeah, it's a stressful period applying to residency, but I like to say it's a positive stress, because we've worked so hard to get to this point where we have some form of control on our future and deciding on what type of doctor we get to be. So it's a lot of like self-exploration and yeah, a fun time.
And for those who are not too familiar with it, what does that application process look like for getting into residency programs?
So it's quite lengthy. But I mean, if you've applied to med school, you know that it's always like, there's always some type of waiting game. But essentially, you finish third year, but it's kind of backwards, not backwards, but you have to decide on your electives in May. So for example, I'm 2 weeks. I'm 2 weeks into fourth year now, but I had to decide on the electives that I'm doing right now in May. But in May, I had May, June, July. In May, I hadn't even started my surgical rotation yet. So I had done 0 surgery. I didn't know if I liked surgery. I just figured I would hate it, which sucks because I actually really liked it. But like, I just figured I wouldn't like surgery. And I only had the electives under my belt that I had done. But then you have to pick your electives for fourth year. And in fourth year, you get to, it's kind of a free-for-all. You get to choose all your electives. And your electives, there's so many roles, I won't even get into it. It's like a whole thing in and of itself. But you want to do as many electives essentially in your like field of interest to try to match that residency program, which makes sense, right? So it's like, if you want to be an orthopedic surgeon, you want to max out your orthopedic surgery electives because you want exposure, you want to see the workflow, you want the residents to know who you are, you want to get good letters, you want the staff to know who you are, a lot of those types of things. So you decide your electives in May, and then it kind of continues, whatever, you finish third year, and then you solidify your electives. So it's not like it's absolutely solidified. There's still some wiggle room. But then, yeah, you have more of your electives, and they kind of come in rolling waves. I don't know if there's a better way to describe it, but like every couple of weeks / months, you have a new block of electives that opens, and then you can apply to them. But then electives, again, it's a whole thing in and of itself right now for visiting electives, which is electives outside of your university. It's a lottery system. So that's new this year. I don't know if by the time that people are listening, if they're in med school, if they'll change it. But that just essentially means you can apply to electives anywhere in Canada, and there's no, like, they just pick out of a hat. Yeah. Which has been challenging for a lot of students this year because, I don't know, I have a lot of friends that are from Toronto, and they want to go back home, and they're like, this is kind of unfair, this lottery system, because I want to go home. And before, it used to be first come, first serve. So if you applied to it first, you probably would get it. And now they abolished that, so they don't have that anymore. So that's the electives part. And then actually applying to residency, again, there's a lot that goes into it. So you have to fill out a lot of things on the CARMS website. CARMS is Canadian Residency Matching Services, I believe. So you essentially put your whole entire CV onto there. I have to rewrite Casper, so I'm like getting like trigger warning, but I'm redoing Casper and everything for, and then you need reference letters for all the different programs. So if you're applying to different programs, you need to get letters. And then fourth year, like I mentioned, is a free-for-all in terms of electives. So everyone's years can look drastically different. And it's stressful because your electives are essentially an in-person interview. So for example, I got 8 weeks of anesthesiology, and then I'm starting in 2 weeks. And every single day that I'm going to work, like in the back of your mind as a fourth year elective student, you know that it's kind of all eyes on you and everyone's looking at you. Everyone's looking at how you interact with the residents, how you interact with patients. You're getting asked questions, so you need to know your stuff. You need to know, like, be knowledgeable. If you're doing a procedural, like an elective that requires procedures, like in anesthesia, I'm like, oh, I probably shouldn't be horrible at intubating. So there's a lot going on. And then asking for reference letters. So, you'll encounter a lot of different personalities in medicine. So you're just hoping that you'll work with someone that vibes with you and gets along with you so they can write you a good letter. And then like the good letters are important to match. So yeah, it's a lot of moving parts, a lot to keep track of. And all that's due in November. And then I believe interview invites come out in January. And then February is reserved for us to just interview all month long, essentially. And then match day is March 3rd. So then match day is the big day where you find out if you matched and where you matched. And then, then after that, honestly, I don't know. That's like the only time I've kept track until March 3rd. And after that, I'm like, either I matched or I didn't. But yeah.
And what was your favorite part of your anesthesia rotation?
I think a lot of different things. I think medicine's really interesting because, again, there's a lot of different personalities. So everyone, like, advice that I got pretty early on is try to find your people. And you'll see some environments in certain specialties. You walk into a room and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. Like, these people get me. What a vibe. I'm like loving it. And other times I've walked into a room, I'm like, oh, like, okay, I'm just going to shut my mouth and, like, I won't speak here because, like, not the vibe.
Yeah, well, also, too, residents' physicians on the back nine of a 24-hour shift.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably probably don't have a high-level patient.
Yeah, you, like, read the room a little bit. But anesthesiology, I love the medicine and the physiology. So when I started medical school, I thought I either wanted to do pediatrics or emergency medicine, because I was a scribe in the emergency department for a year before starting med school. And pediatrics, I've always worked with kids. I tutored kids. I taught swimming lessons, and I just love kids. So naturally, I was like, okay, I'll work with kids or I'll do emerge, because I really liked emerge. I liked the high pace. I'm, again, super high energy, and I just had fun with it. So I didn't know anesthesia actually existed as a specialty until I started. But I find anesthesiology as a really wonderful mix of a deep level understanding of, like, human physiology, because the patient's life is in your hands, right? So you need to really understand not only, like, one system in the body, but, like, you need to have a great understanding of how the heart works, of how the brain works, of how the lungs work, like how everything intertwines. And that's always been the most attractive part to me in terms of medicine. I really like understanding medicine at a granular level. And that was always something that I felt I missed in emergency medicine. I loved the high pace. I loved the acuity. But when we had a patient that came in and they were kind of undifferentiated and emerge didn't know what was going on, I noticed that a lot of personalities in emerge were happy to kind of send them off and be like, okay, I don't know what's up with this person. We've done everything. Go to internal med. I'm done with you. But, like, they were happy to send them off. Whereas I kind of was like, oh, I'm really curious. Like, I'm just a very curious person. I was like, but what's wrong with them? Like, I really want to know. And I'd want to be on the other side following up and seeing what happened to the patient. So I found I missed that in emergency medicine. And then I did my internal medicine rotation, and I loved it because it's really deep physiology. You need to have a really strong grasp of how the human body works. But in internal medicine, you do 3 years of residency and then you kind of subspecialize. So I highly considered doing general internal medicine for a while because I
I don't like anything enough to only study that. So I didn't want to be a cardiologist because I was like, well, the lungs are really cool too. But then I didn't want to do resp because I was like, well, I really like the brain. And I was like, I didn't want to do neurology because it kind of just left things out. Like I like having an understanding of how everything works as a system. But then internal medicine is very slow. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so like, I cannot do these rounds. I can't just go on the wards and stand by a patient bed and spend 20 minutes talking about this medication. Like I'm like shaking, like agitated. I want to be like running around. I'm too high energy for this. So then I did anesthesia. I was like, this is wonderful because you get the really deep understanding of physiology, but then you also have the acuity in the sense that you have like you push a drug and you see something happen right away. So I found that really cool, and I love pharmacology. A lot of my research in undergrad was in pharmacology and medicinal chemistry. And then the last thing I'll say that I love is people are so chill, like for the most part. Like people are just so chill, and it's really nice because in anesthesia, like no one really knows what you do, right? Like I didn't even know it was a specialty. My first encounter with anesthesia, I was a server before starting med school, and I like served this guy, and he was like, "Oh, I'm a retired physician. I miss working all the time. Like I miss being in the OR." I was like, "Oh, were you a surgeon?" He's like, "No, I was an anesthesiologist." I was like, "Oh, nice. Is that like a nursing degree? Like what'd you do to get there?" He was like, "No, like I got my MD." And I was like, "Oh, cool, like cool. What's anesthesia?" And then he explained it to me. So I think anesthesiology has like it pulls very chill personalities because you can't have an ego in anesthesia. Like you need to recognize that you'll never be the star of the show. When the patient wakes up, they probably will forget who you are, but they're going to look at the surgeon and say, "Oh my goodness, the surgeon saved my life. Surgeon, you are amazing. You are wonderful." And anesthesia doesn't get that praise, right? So you need to be okay with that. But like the upside is that there aren't many egos. Like anesthesia's okay closing the drapes and being like, "Okay, surgeon, like you're the star of the show, do your thing. I'm here to provide a service and facilitate the operation that you need to do, and I'm happy to do that, and I will do excellent work and make sure the patient stays safe, and I am like the advocate for the patient to, be healthy, and I'm going to take care of them when they're under, and I'm going to wake them up and make sure they're okay. Like their life is literally in my hands. You're doing such an important task that goes typically unrecognized. But then like the pro of that is like everyone's very chill. And like I'm a very chill personality. I just like I butt heads a lot with people that are overly serious. So I love just like the vibe and everyone's chill and like you can crack a joke and it's a fun time. But they do excellent work. So I like the combination.
Yeah, you can't always be uptight.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can't get this image out of my head. I was leaving that conference where you spoke at, and I remember as I was leaving, I looked back, right? And I see this long line of girls spanning all the way back to the atrium, just lining up to talk to you. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, the other two speakers, they were amazing. But I just saw this long line, and I just couldn't believe the impression you had on especially all these young girls. If you could go back in time and give first-year Catalina, as well as the young girls who really look up to you, a piece of advice, what would it be?
First of all, that's really sweet of you to say that. Thank you. And that's so kind. That like touched my heart. And in terms of advice, that's a great question. There's so much I would say, but I need to work on being succinct and not rambling, because that's like I'm doing interview prep here. I'm like I need to be able to shorten down my words. I think I would say, this sounds so not poetic and it's not going to come out right, but kind of
That's okay.
Own your space. I think as women, especially as women in medicine, we're kind of sometimes, and not even on purpose sometimes, but just kind of not cast to the side, but it's very easy to, be submissive and be overly apologetic and just almost apologize for simply existing. And I'm guilty of it, being in an OR and maybe like in medicine in general, it's getting a lot better, but it's still a very male-dominated field. And I think just by nature of being a woman and being a woman in a male-dominated field, it's very easy to just kind of apologize for existing and being like, "Oh, sorry, hi, like I'm the med student, sorry to bother you." But I think that kind of does you a disservice, especially being a woman in medicine. So I would just say, own your space. Literally, in the sense that, like walk into a room with confidence and know that you are bringing something to the table And you don't need to be like the top physician to do that. You can be a first-year undergrad. You can be a first-year medical student. Just by the fact that you're there and you're showing up, you're bringing something to the table. Maybe it can be like even your personality. Like it doesn't matter, but just inherently by being there and by existing, you are bringing value into that room. So own that. And in the way that like you speak and in the way that you show up and everything, just don't be afraid to take up space. Maybe that sounds a little better instead of own your space, but don't be afraid to take up space. And I think that can carry you really, really far.
Yeah, for sure. You're there for a reason. Have confidence in yourself, right? Catalina, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your journey. That was very inspiring, and I can't thank you enough. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us today on the Health Talks podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow us on Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube at the Health Talks Pod, and share this episode with anyone who's interested in science and healthcare. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay curious.